Welcome to the next episode of Flippin' Rich. And really, does your personality even matter when you're talking to sellers? It's really, Pete, it's all about you and your personality. Do you think sellers care? Do you think buyers care? Do you think closing attorneys, title companies, people you align yourself with, do you think a personality even matters?
Well, here's the bottom line. I don't think anybody sits at home and thinks about that, right? But it's important from our perspective as the people going in there to understand not only our personality, but also understand their personality and understand who it is we're dealing with. I always say you got to know your players, right? Well, you got to know your sellers. You got to know your sellers. And for you to know them and for you to understand them, yeah, your personality matters in that regard too. I think you got to be able to adjust. I think you have to be able to kind of see what your strengths are, understand what your weaknesses are. But here's one thing I will tell you for sure, and I see this all the time. People use their personalities as an excuse of why they don't think they can be successful.
Yeah.
And that I don't buy into. I think, yes, of course, everybody would love to have this incredible dynamic personality that could just relate to anybody and everybody wants to do business with and everybody loves.
Everybody wants to be their friend.
Everybody wants to be their friend.
Yeah.
But the reality is that is not true for most of us, right? A lot of us are very introverted. A lot of us never done what's required in this business. So, you got to know what you're dealing with. You have to know what you have a hold of, and you got to know your personality.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You got to know your own individual personality.
Well, I've always, totally believed this is you want to do business with who you know and who you trust. Okay? Like me, for example, I was always, I'm sure you're listening thinking, oh, well, you could tell she's got an accent a little bit. Well, for years, I always wanted to change the way I sounded, but I could never do that without not being me. I don't even worry about it anymore because I think I can see through people. When someone's trying to act like somebody that they're not, or somebody's out there that's like, well, I've never been in this type of business. Maybe I've drove a truck my whole life. I'm not used to dealing with people like that. Should I change my personality to deal with sellers, or should I be myself? I mean, what do you think?
Well, look, the reality is there's two schools of thought on that, okay? A lot of people will tell you just be yourself and it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying I don't buy into that, and I know that's kind of, that a little bit of what you just said, but the other school of thought says this: it's more important for you to be able to recognize what their personality is and to be able to adjust with that.
Match their energy. Match
kind of, are you dealing with introvert? Are you dealing with extrovert? Are you looking for somebody kind of touchy-feely, they want to talk before they do business, and all that kind of stuff. To me personally, I have kind of just stuck with that first philosophy that I'm me, I'm going to be me. Along the way, I know I'm not going to be able to relate to everybody.
Yeah.
And I know that's cost me deals. There's no question. Well, you've known me long enough. People have opinions about me, right?
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, and I get it. So I've kind of been with the school of thought that says here, hey, perfect example. So we just moved. We're in this new neighborhood. And because it's a new neighborhood, we had this kind of a party for the neighborhood, for neighbors to get to know neighbors. So so Ear and I are, we're in a courtyard, we're talking to everybody. Turns out, I don't know if you remember this, when I first met you in that first office we had, remember we hired that a consultant to help us.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
He gave us the scale of 1 to 10.
This guy works at the exact same company, right? So we just kind of start talking this back and forth. And I told him what I do. He told me what he did. I was like, oh my gosh, we worked with your company before. And he said, well, what's your style? Like when you're dealing with sellers, when you're selling things, when you're buying a piece of real estate, when you're trying to acquire something, what do you do? And I told him exactly what I told him. I said, I'm kind of myself. And he goes, do you know that you probably lose 60% of your business, if not more? And reality is when he told me that, it didn't hurt me. I'm like, yes, I know that. He said, well, we here teach that you have to make adjustments, that you have to be more relatable to people, that you have to, it's more important to read to other people. So here's my personal feel. If it's someone like you, you have the ability to bounce. I think you have the ability to relate to people, to different kinds of people. That's great. And that, I think, does give you somewhat of an advantage. But then somebody could be listening here to us, and they're more like me. They have just kind of a certain way they like to do things, and they kind of rather be themselves. And I think no matter what category you fall into, you could be successful with both. See, here's the thing. I just knew I had to make adjustments. The adjustment I had to make, I have to go through a lot more numbers than you do. You know, I have to talk to a lot more sellers to get a deal than someone like you. But at the same time, I'm being comfortable in my own shoes, and so I'm kind of more comfortable through the process.
Well, you know what, though? That brings up a good point. I've lost more deals negotiating, though, than you. Like, I tell you, we're going to do it the next one of these in a couple of weeks on negotiating. I've never met anybody better at negotiating than this guy, because you take the emotion out of negotiations. And I personally have a hard time going from being emotional with somebody to the negotiation side. And I mean, not that I haven't negotiated deals, I've negotiated plenty of deals, but it's because it's hard for me to cut that off, because negotiations can be, I mean, it's not like it's all tough or anything, but you do have to pull emotions out of that a little bit when you're talking money, you know, you do. So, I totally agree with you, but you know, I mean, and I think we're really saying the same thing, because I said be myself, and you said your best thing was to be yourself, you know. But that's the point that I'm making is should people change? No,
I don't think so. I think, you know, there's a lot of things that are not easy about being a real estate investor. Right? There's plenty of things that you're going to encounter that are difficult. You know, for some of us like myself, I've never done a rehab in my life. So I had to there's a whole new industry, which I still don't understand, by the way. I don't think you need to create more problems for yourself when you're in this business. And I think if I'm a beginner investor in understanding that, oh, wow, I got to change my personality, I got to change the way I am, I got to change the way I interact, I think that's just going to be another thing to overcome.
Yeah, like, well, you're right. And I think people worry about it way too much, especially like I teach cold calling techniques and how to cold call. And the first thing I say anytime that I'm teaching cold calling is, just be yourself. Just be yourself, because you're afraid to do it because you're worried about sounding or acting like somebody you're not. The moment that you just decide, hey, at this moment, I'm not afraid because I don't have to pretend I'm somebody. I don't need to talk like somebody else does. I just gotta be myself. Then what are you so afraid of? Because that right there, this personality thing is really what holds so many people back. I'm not even talking about being successful. I'm talking about from even launching. Like, we've worked with so many people that, like, I knew if they could just get past that launch point, it's like, I know your life could change financially, but you're so worried about things that don't matter, it's not even funny. You know, like how, like, let's say I give you a phone number. I'm like, call them. I think maybe that might be a house I saw driving down the road. You're not even worried at all. You just dial the number and press go, right? You don't care what type of person's on the back end. Like me, I don't even really need to know anything besides the address of the house to even start a conversation. So, I mean, what is your advice for somebody that's failing to launch? Because I think it has a lot to do with them trying to think like, well, I heard this guy on, YouTube, or my mentor does it this way. Well, scripts aren't for everybody, and you don't have to be like your mentor. You just got to be yourself. I mean, what's your advice for somebody in that point that's getting started?
Well, one of the things you hear me talk about so often is becoming brilliant at the basics, okay? And that's really the goal to becoming successful in this business. You never hear me talk about, well, you got to be this kind of a personality. You never hear me talk about that you got to say things this kind of, with this kind of a tone, with this kind of an attitude. You just got to become, good at the basics of this business, and you have to deliver them within your own personality. And so I will tell you this, it's a cliche, but it's so true. Anybody can do this thing. Really, anybody can do this business. And it's not a personality-driven business, although, of course, it would be, like I said, it'd be wonderful if everybody falls in love with you, but that's just not a reality.
Well, not even if nobody falls in love with everybody.
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah. It doesn't happen. That's why, the grass is always green on the other side. The people that use their personalities as an excuse not to be successful is the same person that's going to use something else as an excuse not to be successful.
What is like Winnie the Pooh? What's that? Eeyore, right? Is it Eeyore? Like you never watched Winnie the Pooh?
Sorry.
No, and he's like, it's always raining by him, and it's always got a down face.
Well,
it's always a bad day. It's always this. It's always that. I mean, goodness, I learned that from watching Winnie the Pooh.
Well, so here's the thing. I think no matter what personality you have, you just accept it. Mm-hmm. And you stick, like I said, you stick with just learning the basics of this business.
Yeah.
And the basics of this business could be done and incorporated and utilized by any kind of personality out there.
Oh, yeah.
Bottom line is you don't have to change yourself. Now, what will happen over a period of time, you will evolve. Like, for instance, I am today 23 years into this business, different than I was when I got started. But it's not because when I got started, I knew I had to be different. It's just over a period of time I got better. I started understanding more. I started to understand how to relate to people a little bit more. But that's an evolution. That's not okay, let me stop everything. Let me evolve. Let me change. Let me be something I'm not. No, it just happens. What happens, you just get better. Mm-hmm. That's really what happens. You just get better. And because you get better, you become different. You know what I mean? It's like any of us that's played sport know the day one that we start is very different than the day when we win a championship. Mm-hmm. We didn't become those champions the day we started. We evolved over a period of time. And so, the key in this business is just to get started, to do what needs to be done, to contact sellers, and be yourself. I would spend a lot less short of... There are some things you don't want to do through your personality. You don't want to be rude. Mm-mm. You don't want to be condescending. You don't want to come across arrogant. But those are not really personality things. Those are traits. Mm-hmm. Those are kind of just things that, you do. You have a bad day, so you come across bad. Those you want to take out of your arsenal. Mm-hmm. Those are that. If that's you, yes, I do think those are things to work on. But as long as you're genuine, as long as you understand what the goal and the mission is, what the objective is, as long as you understand we're there to help people, as long as you understand, how to structure a transaction, at least from some basic, viewpoints, then the last thing you have to worry about is what your personality is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do have a good piece of advice to come across that way, right? Mm-hmm. And I learned this a long time ago. I used to sell lawn care years ago. Is the simple act of smiling whenever you speak will amaze you the different results. If you're making calls or if you're in front of somebody and I'm like, hey, Peter, I'm going to talk to you about da-da-da-da-da. But if I'm smiling at you and you know what I mean? It's not even what I say. It's the fact that I make you feel good just because I'm smiling. When I hear somebody on the phone, I can tell if they're smiling or not. Or you could tell what their personality is. And I think that's something everybody should do. And if you're not used to doing that, make calls and put a mirror in front of you. I guarantee you, if you make a call with a smile on your face, and if you have a sad face and make calls, you are going to get better results this way. I mean, what do they say? You don't bring in bees with vinegar, you bring it in with honey. Or, no, I guess bees wouldn't. Bees don't drink honey, do they? Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. I don't know. Flies.
No, I think we get your point. Look, guys, reality is this: we're all different. We're all different. We all have different personalities. but you also understand all the sellers are different, and all the sellers have different personalities. So by being something you're not, or thinking that you're being something that you're not, what you're going to do is you're going to turn the sellers off to a very simple thing. People don't like fake people. And remember what we are. We have a business here, and we're dealing with very large transactions. You know, people's houses, it's the biggest thing they have, right? And I will tell you, all day long, people will deal with somebody that might not be their personality, but people don't want to deal with people that's not genuine.
Yeah.
People don't want to deal with people that are fake. People don't want it, like you've been there. You've walked into a car dealer. I know I've walked into a car dealership, and I'm just like talking to somebody, and I could just tell they're
You're
faking
like,
it.
please leave me alone.
Yes, and I'm not going to do that transaction for one simple reason. That's a fake in front of me. So it is much more important to be yourself, but be genuine, than to be something that you think somebody wants to be, but be fake. Because people see through fake. People see through, and you know, sometimes people say, well, Pete, I'm a rookie, you know, I'm just getting started, so I have to have all the advantage. That's not an advantage. You know, there's other advantages. Advantages is calling 50 sellers instead of 5 sellers. You know, advantage is learning your scripts as opposed to not learning your scripts. And advantage is aligning yourself as opposed to not aligning. Being fake, being something you're not, you know, being, you know, trying to impress somebody with a characteristic that you don't have. People see through that. So be yourself, be comfortable in your skin, understand the basics of this business, and understand whether you have your type of personality, my type of personality, or your type of personality. In the end, it's an even playing field for all of us.
Absolutely. That is such great advice, Peter. Such great advice. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Flipping Rich. We wish you well. Bye-bye.